Hello, welcome to a Legacy Enchantress video. This is Spatula of the Ages. This past Sunday, July 31st, I played in the Legacy Challenge. Ended up in 17th place. My actual record was 3-3. I won a first round bye, and then ended up with a 4-3 record, which put me in 17th place because I believe all of my opponents did above average. One top 8'd, a lot of them were in the top 16. So my tiebreakers were just really, really good. So 3-3, not an exceptional record, but it's okay. The field was surprisingly combo heavy. I didn't play against a single fair blue deck. So given that, I think the deck performed pretty well. So I'm just going to go over some of the matchups. I think some people are interested in seeing some Enchantress content with the new cards. We've been getting a lot of new toys, actually. So, that all out of the way, let's talk briefly about the changes from the last list that I posted earlier in July. So I added a Seal of Primordium that replaced the third cast out with the idea that it is cheaper, obviously. It's pretty good in the format right now, especially with the return of Standstill. It's also good against Lurin, various Omnitel, Show and Tell decks. It's a pretty flexible card. It's obviously not particularly good against UR Delvers specifically, but you know, it still cycles, it's cheap, and yeah, so it's just replacing the third cast out. That did reduce the white count slightly, so I believe this has what, 4, 8, 11, 12, 13 white cards, so the Solitude count is a little bit low. I split the, especially because I reduced the 4 on Thin Ice to 3 on Thin Ice and 2 Elephant Grass. I was just missing Elephant Grass. There's a lot of aggro in the format right now. The above mentioned UR Delver, for example, as well as the Madness decks run in and around, and a Rise in Green-White Dark Depths as well. So that slot also came from 1 Wild Growth, so I'm down to 3 Wild Growth. Because our curve is a bit lower now, I don't think the 4th Wild Growth is strictly necessary. That may be incorrect. This is a little bit of an experiment, but I was having issues just, you know, flooding a bit and having more mana than I needed, and so the 4th Wild Growth got cut. Oh, and I added Mary's Guile back in. So Mary's Guile, I was just missing it. It's one of those cards that's really nice to have. It's not strictly necessary, so that's why I only run 1 copy, because the second copy is redundant, and the first copy isn't necessary, but when you have it, it can be quite nice. It increases the number of strong turn 1 plays that you have, gives you more ability to operate under a Narset effect, to dig for the Living Wish, or Zenith, or Cast Out, or On Thin Ice if it's a Hull Breacher, or Enlevelled, etc. Okay, let's get into the matches. So this is round 2. I am up against JPA93, a well-known player of Sneak and Show, who I actually beat, I think, in the finals a couple years ago when I won the challenge. So we will go first. Nice to have. So this hand has the Cast Out, which, you know, can obviously be very good against Show and Tell, especially if they're not on Omnitel but on Sneak and Show. Against Omnitel, it's a lot less reliable that will be enough to carry you. But it has literally nothing else going on, so we will mulligan. That hand cannot cast anything, unfortunately, because it has the basic planes as the only mana source. Not even any cast outs to cycle, which would be a dubious keep anyway. Also, especially because, you know, we don't really want to cycle cast out in this matchup. So we'll go down to 5, not a great start, but this hand is very solid. It's got the good start, that is turn 1 acceleration into turn 2 Enchantress. It did have the other 1 mana enchantment to cycle off an Enchantress, but I think it's more important to keep the second Enchantress, because we need to draw a lot of cards against Sneak and Show. I'm going to press play now that the mulligan decisions are over. Go a little faster. Okay, so we do the obvious thing. Opponent just ponder shuffles. We could notably Living Wish here, but I think we need to get our board set up there's always the possibility that they've just got it, but we're already down a bunch of resources. If we invest too many early resources in just trying to turtle up, we're going to lose in the long game, because they can also, just play a cantrip and sculpt game and then set themselves up to be, the one piece of interaction we spend our resources getting. So I'm going to try to just get our Enchantress into play. Unfortunately, opponent just has, not only do they have a turn 2, they've got turn 2 sneak attack, not show and tell, and they've got the Simian Guide into Grizzlebrand, into Lotus Petal, into Emrakul. So that's a very quick one. Opponent had the nuts there, but that's, why you run Sneak and Show. Okay, sideboarding versus Sneak and Show. So, against Sneak and Show, it's a pretty fast deck, so you really just want to have 1 or 2 wish targets, but that's complicated by the fact that you might need to wish against a sneak attack plan, and you might need to wish against a show and tell plan. So, Caracas is going to be our wish target to deal with sneak attack, and also, obviously can deal with a show and tell that just puts into play a creature rather than an omniscience or sneak attack. And then we're also going to have Wismare to deal with omniscience or sneak attack. And then Solitude is going to be sort of our catch-all wish target. It can answer either. It's possible that that might be one too many wish targets, and maybe the Wismare should just come in. I haven't tested as much with the current configuration against Sneak and Show. Sneak and Show in general has been picking up in popularity the past couple of months. It had actually kind of died off before that and been replaced by Omnitel, but now Sneak and Show is coming back in full force. So let's go to game 2. Game 2 is going to be a lot more competitive, but we are going to end up losing. Spoiler alert. So I keep this hand because it has turn 1 Utopia Sprawl, turn 2 Living Wish, and Living Wish for Caracas is just a good play anyway, so it's not like we're spending a whole turn just to get our land drop. Opponent passes. Interesting. Okay, we found a land, so I'm just going to go ahead and go for the draw. Now, they could do the same thing as last time, but I don't think you should play around the top, 5 to 10% of their hands, unless they're just really signaling hard that that's what they're on. I think playing our own plan turn 2, especially if we're on the play, makes more sense. We want to start getting ahead on resources. So that's a little scary. That's very scary. Okay, show and tell. Alright, so they show and tell in a Grizzlebrand, which is obviously a lot scarier than if they put in an Emrakul, because we've got double Living Wish. We could have just Caracased. And even if they countered the first one, the second one could just get Solitude. They are going to draw a ton of cards, but we do have 2 Enchantresses in play and some gas to get going. So we're not out of this. So, okay, they opt to just draw a million cards to see if they can just finish it here. So another very strong start. Let's get the free cards, get some information. Okay, I opt to lead with the Paladin class because it draws cards, obviously, and it limits their ability to interact. They're going to have to start spending Lotus Petals if they want to use the Force of Wills, which you have to assume they kept at least 1, probably 2. So they counter this, go for the Elephant Grass. That's also going to get countered. They are down to 3 cards in hand. You have to assume that they're very good cards. Okay, we go for the Living Wish. I go for the Solitude. I'm not going to Solitude now because they are at 2 life. Ancient Tomb is shut off for them. I do not want to turn it on for them before combat because that could lead to situations where I get sneak attacked by an Emrakul. And if they have the days, it's going to be countered anyway, which they do, or a Force of Will, of course. They're going to daze it, so, I mean, that's fine. They are going to gain 7 life. Are they going to draw? Explosives for 2. So, it's quite interesting. So we'll go for the Living Wish here. If they have another counter, Living Wish into Caracas, obviously. If they have another counter, we can cast out. They do have another counter. Now they're down to 1, though. Force of Will is turned off for them. Fetch lands are turned off. Ancient Tomb is turned off. They could daze, in which case he'd probably be dead. They don't daze. Okay. I go for an Enchantress here. This Elephant Grass is debatable. I'm keeping in mind that they've drawn at this point no more than half their deck, right? So, and they have used 2 Lotus Petals, but we also know that they've got Spirit Guides, so it's kind of scary to just pass, even though this isn't a mana-producing land. They could just go City of Traders, Lotus Petal, or Simian Spirit Guide, and I don't think that's an unreasonable hand for them to have. Notably, they have like all these cards in their graveyard, right, that they've discarded from Grizzlebrand, which means they've never discarded an Emrakul, which means they probably got one in hand. So I mean, that's one of the things they would need. So this play is debatable, but I think it's correct to be a little bit conservative here and hope that our draws are good. Okay, Paladin class isn't bad. Okay, so they've got Sneak Attack. We do have an answer to it. So that's a good draw. We'll cast out here, and we'll go for our 3rd Living Wish, I believe. Unfortunately, they've got Spirit Guide Daze. Okay, so they managed to have counter magic despite Paladin class being in play and then being at 1 life. So that's pretty frustrating. During their turn, they will play another Sneak Attack. Now, here is a debatable call. So, do you pay the 2 mana for Elephant Grass or not? So if you pay the 2 mana, you know, you don't have much gas, right? But if you do, then they need another land that's not a fetch land in order to attack with that Emrakul. And keep in mind, at our life total, which is higher than it would be because of Sythis, that even though we could survive the Annihilation trigger pretty well, actually, but we can't survive the damage. So, do you pay the upkeep or not? I'm honestly not sure. I end up paying it, and in this case, it actually costs me the game that I paid it. Because had I had the 2 mana up, I could have played the Sealed Primordium and just blown up the Sneak Attack, and I think that would have been game over. And we would have gone to game 3. But again, I guess I'm just not sure. Opponent plays an Engineered Explosives for 0, dazes it, which is a pretty sick play. It's a way of getting that 1 more mana. They accidentally add blue, though, instead of red. So now they're forced to brainstorm and find a City of Traders, or pass and die. Unfortunately, they find the City of Traders. So opponent actually made a significantly bigger mistake than I did, but, you know, Snake and Show has that raw power level. Okay, so we lose round 2, we go to round 3. Round 3, we are on the play again. I believe Antarctica, this is a player that I've seen play various Stompy decks. I don't think I looked up their MTGO results, and they did recently have something with Delver, but my memory is just playing against this person in it, like always being some variant of Stompy. So I keep this hand, which folds pretty hard to a single piece of disruption, right? It's not got a lot else going on, but it does have, the good start. So we'll do some marginal thinning. So thinning, being a myth and all, but when you're drawing a lot of cards, it actually can matter. So I will tend to do it early if I can, especially like the earlier, that means it affects more draws. So the first couple of thins are somewhat relevant. Okay, found some more gas. Hopefully the Sythis doesn't die. Okay, Sythis doesn't die. Opponent actually notably cannot make a construct here. They've got only 2 artifacts, right? This is an enchantment. So Seal of Primordium being a great draw here. The Seal of Primordium can hit the Seat of the Synod. They'll lose their Saga next turn. Their Opal will be further from Metalcraft. So it's kind of like a double Stone Rain. Kind of. This can probably get, a Lotus Petal or something. Or a Chrome Box even. I think it's a Lotus Petal. Okay, and it's another Saga. Okay, they still can't do much. Alright, we'll just set up our board here. Okay, Living Wish is really good because that means next turn we can just collect your Oof. Okay, we don't even get the chance to. They just had, clearly they kept a hand that needed something, probably like a soul land or something, and then had really good payoff, but they didn't hit that, so their hand just basically did nothing. I will sideboard like this. I expect some sort of mana disruption, and against any deck where they're trying to bottleneck you on mana, I will generally take out Living Wishes for whatever the best relevant cards are. The Paladin classes, because I don't expect much, if any. They might have boarded in some Force of Wills, but probably not. And they could have Chalice, which means, we could benefit from reducing our number of 1-drops, even though we do have Destiny Spinner, of course. So I'll bring in Destiny Spinner, Argothian Collector Oof, Pride Mage. I'll bring in Choke, because generally these decks run some number of islands. If I get Collector Oof out, I want to be able to shut off their islands as well as a mana source, and just completely lock them down. Gaddock to deal with Karns, as well as, if there is a Karn in play, to deal with Mycosynth Lattice. They probably have a number of things that Gaddock stops. It obviously stops some of our stuff as well. And the second Caracas, they generally run like Emry and Urza and stuff like that. Okay. Game 2, opponent Mulligan. This is a very solid start. It obviously gets worse if they open on Chalice, but it's also not dead to that either. So, Multi 5. Open on Tomb, nothing. Okay, so and that's a good draw. We'll just go ahead and do that. It's possible I should have just Vista'd there, in case they have Sorcerer's Spyglass. So the fact that they open on turn 2 Tanglewire means that this Miri's Guile is going to be really good, because it's going to help us continue to make our land drops. They're playing Tanglewire at the moment in kind of a fair way, which is annoying for us, but not, especially since they're on the play. And, obviously Tanglewire is always going to be slightly in their favor, but they're not really, breaking it. I probably shouldn't have gotten the fetch here. I probably should have just gotten a forest, because the top was just 3 lands, which is what we want. But now the Tanglewire is not nearly as scary. They're going pretty low on life with just their tombs at this point. They get a Karn, and they've got a Liquid Metal Coating, so that's not so scary for us because we've got Collector Oof in hand. Actually, even if we didn't have Collector Oof, we'd have the extra land drop and a Zenith. I'm going to go ahead and put the wild growth on that land, which would obviously be worse if they did have the Codain, but because of the oof, we're free to do that. And this way, if they play another Tanglewire, we can play around it better, because by having one untapped land, we can generate more than one mana. Okay, so starting to put constructs into play. Now this could become scary pretty quickly. They'll get another construct next turn. So it would be nice to get the engine set up. However, they could also simply top deck any like Soul Land, Ancient Tomb, or City of Traders, and just Karn into Lattice. Make a construct first, and then they've got two enormous beefy boys, and I've just got my 2/2, and nobody can tap for mana. So I would obviously lose that race very, very quickly. So what we're going to have to do here is get Gaddock to be safe, even though that does shut off our own cast out, which would be nice at the moment. It's arguable whether I should have played that spinner either. But my thought was to develop the board presence to make this a race and threaten their planeswalkers, because they're developing their board as well. Okay, so I've got two 5/5s now. We are at a very high life total, so we have life to play with. So Paladin class is interesting. It's the 1/0 Paladin class. If this is going to be a race on the board, then it's kind of relevant to pump. But we can only pump once, right? We only have 2 white mana. So there's a debate here whether to pump or whether to make an elemental. That elemental will be a 5/5. It would trade with a construct or with a Karn. But we do have time still. So I opt to level up. Tanglewire dies, which does make these guys weaker, but they have a choice between different artifact things. So they're back up to 5/5s. So now our elemental would be a 6/6, or we could start developing the board. It's possible I could have just focused on developing the board here. What I end up doing is going for the attack, which does cost us a land and trades with a construct. If I don't do that, next turn they swing for 10. I've got to chump block with something. It's probably the Destiny Spinner. I think at this point I was still thinking like offensively, like I want to like pressure their planeswalkers. We can't cast this cast out obviously, but we could have like play the Argothian, cycle into the Enchantress's presence, play that, and the next turn have double Enchantresses and start trying to go off. That probably would have been a winning line. But at the time, I'm thinking, I guess I wasn't counting on the fact that the Urza Saga would start making constructs as well. So I needed to get ahead on cards while I had the opportunity to do so. Instead, I try to go aggressive. I kill one construct, but they can make 2 more this turn. I have to keep the cast out because if I let my Gadek die, I can actually just cast it. We needed to hit, like, I don't even know, running, thin ice, but we don't. So that's going to be game. So this is a very good hand, obviously. Again, it's possible I should have actually cracked the Heath. You don't see too much of the Sorcerer's Spyglass anymore, but it's still a possibility. There's little reason to hold on to it. I suppose I could have always played the Abundant Growth on it, if that were the case. Instead, I just start cycling my enchantments. They get countered, but it's fine. I still draw cards. Oh, so I do think, you know, a lot of the time your sideboarding decisions will obviously change based on what you see, but also based on whether you're on the play or the draw. So obviously bouncing that Karn is questionable because they get to make another token, but what I really don't want them to do is start spinning the wheel over and over again. And I also want to eventually get Oof out. If Oof and Urza are both in play, Urza beats Oof because it's an ability of Urza himself to tap the artifact. So, you know, my long-term plan, which relies heavily on Oof to seal up a lot of what the opponent is doing, means that I'm going to have to keep bouncing this Urza, even though it does keep giving them constructs. At the moment, we're still at a high life total, and we do have an engine in play. They do have Chalice, of course. Alright. Well, Ancestral Recall here. Okay, there's the Destiny Spinner. I'll just draw some more cards, because our hand's not amazing at the moment. Bounce the Urza again. We are going to go to 3, which is obviously not ideal, but next turn we'll get Destiny Spinner into play. And we'll be able to go a little bit ham, as it were. So they spin, and they get a Chalice. They have not to play their Chalice for 0, although it would have forced a chump block, but in the long term, you know, it would have hurt them. So we get our Destiny Spinner into play. We'll start playing enchantments. Okay, Seal Primordium is good. Sythis is good. Alright, lots of white mana. Alright. Let's clear up one of these constructs. We could have maybe led on the Sythis here, but I'm also a little bit worried about having this many enchantments in play. Or enchantresses, I mean, in play. Still, the life going would be nice. Alright, we'll kill another construct. We'll get the Oof, bounce the Urza. They do have an island, right? So, I believe we brought in Choke, right? We did bring in Choke, yes. Good. Okay, so they get a Karn. Alright, we'll kill one of these boys, chump block another with an Argothian. We actually are quite okay losing enchantresses at this point. In fact, it's good for us to do so. Alright, another uncounterable 1-mana enchantment. Make some, gain some life, draw some cards. We're a little bit low. Oh, I guess I brought in Grist. Oh yeah, for the various Karns, mainly. And that's a lethal attack, actually. And actually we gotta just kill them and the Karn in the same attack. Alright, going to round 4. We in round 4, we are on the play again. We won all our die rolls. That's always nice. I shuffled away the Paladin class because I googled this person plus MTGO results, and they were like all on elves, which is a very bad matchup. So I kept this just because it has on thin ice, and I can cycle the cast out and try to get to the point where I can get Doomwake online is our best hope. Okay, their start is not so hot. That's always nice. I'm gonna go ahead and get Sythis because the life gain and the bigger butt can be relevant if we need to block an attack. They develop a pretty significant board on turn 3 here. Pretty scary stuff. Play a very inefficient removal spell. Take out the symbiotes, obviously, since we can't hit the others. But this is not looking good for us. If they have any kind of payoff, there's the payoff, and we're dead. Okay, so elves, bad matchup. So I sideboarded like this. I'm actually not sure that this is correct, which we'll play elves again later in the tournament, and I think that I will sideboard a little bit differently. But Doomwake Giant is your best card, but Living Wish for him is too expensive. So we'll bring him in, and our Living Wish targets will be Solitude to deal with an Archon, and Spore Frog to try to preemptively deal with other situations and buy a turn versus a Crater Hoof or whatever. We'll bring in Grist as just anything that kills creatures is good. Gaddock because they need their Zenith and their natural orders more than we do. And I think I brought in the Enchantress just under the assumption that I was never going to be in a situation where I wanted to Living Wish for her. And it's probably better than these cards. The reason I sideboarded a little bit differently, and the mistake, I think, is that I would probably leave in the Paladin class simply because being able to Solitude is so important. And I don't want to reduce my white count too much. So that's the only thing I think was different here. Alright, let's go to the game. This hand is very solid. It's, in fact, pretty ideal. Turn 1, Acceleration. Turn 2, Enchantress with On Thin Ice. Oh, this is the one I think that I fuck up, though. So, here's my thought process. What if they, you know... what was my thought process? If they Thoughtseize me and take the Argothian, then I still want to be able to Enchantress plus Thin Ice. And the mistake, of course, is that now I don't have a Snowland. So, pretty big mistake. I played myself, as it were. Here's me realizing my mistake and having a bad turn as a consequence. Let's see if the deck can bail us out. Okay, so this is exceedingly awkward. We draw a card, cycle, please. There it is. Okay. Deck bailed us out. I have to take the Elvish Mystic here. It and the Dryad Arbor obviously both represent a potentially large amount of mana, depending on what other enablers they've got in their hand. I suppose the Nettle Sentinel could as well. They're all scary, you know. Would have rather hit the turn 1 play. So that's a potential throw, but I believe we end up going to game 3 despite that. So they get Rex Sage online, which a lot of builds aren't even running anymore. Which of course, you know, helps us a little bit. Still doesn't really change too much about the matchup being incredibly unfavorable. I'll Living Wish for the Frog, put the Frog into play. So in this situation, I'm not too worried because we have the Frog to buy a turn. if they put Archon into play, we have Living Wish plus a white card to kill it with Solitude. They only have 3 cards left in hand. They have to do nothing. Very strange. I wonder what their play is here. Alright, well, we want to gain life, find removal, kill stuff. Elephant Grass is actually not so bad against them. Especially because like a lot of them aren't running Rex Sage anymore. So against them, if they don't have an answer to Rex Sage, Elephant Grass can actually push back their Greater Hoof turn by 1 turn, which is, you need to keep buying time against them. The main problem in this matchup is that they're just like a turn and a half faster than us or so. I guess they're more like 2 turns, actually. 2 turns, I'd say, on like their better hands. But opponent just isn't doing anything. I guess they're just flooded. I'm obviously not going to blow the Spore Frog on this. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the Grist is worth it. Like, it got to kill the Rex Sage, so they can't do any Wirewood nonsense. I don't believe they have any way to get their stuff back, unless they're playing an Endurance or something wacky. Okay. Okay, the opponent is just really flooded. So, we're about to get this one. Yeah, we've got Destiny Spinner and Paladin class, so we have very lethal attack now. Unfortunately, although it looks good at first glance, or at least maybe that's just me, but it doesn't actually have the ability to cast any of its spells. So that's a no. This one is much more of, us being able to pursue our plan. It doesn't really have much that we want to do against them. I guess it does have a turn 2 Zenith for Gaddock, so, it's certainly keepable. It's not the ideal hand against them, but, it's a bad matchup because we don't have many ideal hands against them. Okay, so that's a medium draw. I suppose it's useful. I'm going to opt to get the Bayou into play while we can. And I will Zenith for Gaddock. These hands, these turns that might seem slow from the elf side can be pretty deceptive. They can just go nuts really quickly. Unfortunately, because of the Karakas, we weren't able to Utopia Sprawl before playing the second enchantment, Enchantress, which cost us a card. Okay, Sura. And unfortunately, they've got the natural Archon here, so we have to find a Living Wish ASAP. I guess we also need a white card or mana, so there's the mana. We still need a Living Wish or a Zenith. We could find a Zenith and get Grist into play and just sack an Enchantress. Not the end of the world to do that. However, we are now at an incredibly low life total, and that is not a Living Wish or Zenith. Does this work? No, it doesn't. Okay. Alright, well, else, not a great matchup. Let's go to round number 5. Alright, we are going into round 5. We are entering with a 2-2 record, and we are up against Julian Knapp, a well-known streamer. Somebody I've actually known, sort of online anyway, I believe, like, 12, 13 years ago or so. He was an Enchantress player back when Legacy was still mostly centered around mtgthesource.com. Nowadays, mostly known for elves, which is bad news for us. As we've previously established, it's a pretty bad matchup. So let's see. We are on the play. So this hand, it does have Living Wish. Turn 1 Acceleration, turn 2 Living Wish for Argothian. Elephant Grass can actually be okay against them since, as I mentioned earlier, they're often not running Reclamation Sage main deck anymore. So it actually can buy time somewhat reliably. So this hand is iffy. It needs some things to come together, but it's a bad matchup, so you can't, you know, you're not like mulliganing into 1 or 2 cards that like win the matchup. You need some things to go right for you. Okay, and sure enough, he's on elves. Alright, I'm going to lead on the Argothian. It's a little scary to miss a land drop here. That's a good start. Good news for us is it doesn't appear to be a glimpse hand, but the possibility of just natural order into Behemoth next turn is very real. Let's hope that doesn't happen. We do have Elephant Grass to slow down any kind of Behemoth attack, so that might buy us time. And it looks like he will double glimpse. I was wrong about the glimpse, but it turns out to be rather a whiff. No real follow-up here. Okay, On Thin Ice is obviously good. I will keep the grass around. Try to develop our mana. And I choose to hold on to the Living Wish rather than use it here to get, for instance, a Doomwake Giant, because if they just put a if they do this, if they play Archon of Valor's Reach, we now have the ability to go get Solitude and get out from under this block that he probably thinks is game over, because often with Enchantress that we don't have an out to Archon, but this list does. So we'll be able to get rid of the Archon and play a Sythis. Alright, so the Archon is gone now, so we have to worry about just a regular old attack. Now we do still have grass to help us out, but I would say things are still pretty scary. So that's only 10 damage. We can survive that and gain a bunch of life this turn. We can actually, yeah, we can let that drop. We can Living Wish for Doomwake Giant, drop the Giant. They'll still have a Behemoth, but it doesn't have trample anymore. They can obviously save 1 elf with Wirewood Symbiote. Okay, it looks like at this point we've actually stolen the game. He has 0 cards in hand. We have a draw engine online, Doomwake in play. Yeah, so this game is over. And we go to sideboarding. So this is how I sideboarded against elves the second time. So Destiny Spinner is pretty useless in this matchup, but you still want 1 to Zenith for. Seal Primordium is completely useless, and the Abundant Growth is just a trim. We will bring in Doomwake Giant, even though it's obviously a very powerful wish target. Our wish targets here are going to be Solitude, again to deal with the Archon plan, and then Spore Frog to buy a turn against everything else. We'll bring in Grist as removal, and Gaddock to shut down Natural Orders and Zeniths. And that's the sideboarding. Obviously we're not worried about Wasteland against this deck, and this does have black mana and a pretty fast start, which is what you want. It is weak to a turn 1 Thoughtseize, but can't have it all. So Julian leads with Quirion Ranger. I will open on a Wild Growth, getting a Snowland this time. I should have not spread out. I was thinking about Assassin's Trophy. That's why I spread out my, which they will generally have post-board. But obviously, spreading them out like this makes paying for the elephant grass rather awkward. Alright, so they have a glimpse hand, which usually means lights out, but they're not hitting a heritage druid. So we buy a little bit of time. And yeah, so see, this is super awkward. Because they've got such a big board, I'm going to lead with the Spore Frog, because they could just kill me pretty easily here. I don't have the luxury of playing around Archon, so unfortunately, he kills my Froggo boy. Very sad. So he sent me a message after this, saying that if I had sacked in response, he would have had to target one of his own guys. I'm not savvy enough on the rules to know if that's true or not. Okay, so we'll draw a bunch of cards, build up a lot of mana, try to kill something, try to make a blocker. This is kind of a scary situation. We do have the Living Wish in case of Archon, but, you know, a Birch Lore is pretty lights out here. Or even a, you know, a Shepherd would have been fine, but he just didn't have anything. So I'm going to play the Paladin class just to reduce the amount of stuff that he could do on my turn. And I'm going to do Mike. And that's going to be game. Yeah, so obviously just bad draws on Julian's part. So I accidentally end up double queuing because I was trying out a modern list. So I'm going to press play, but there's going to be a lot of time-lapse stuff. So that was an easy mull. This hand is pretty questionable. It's like pretty decent against Delver. Not all that much else. Fortunately, it looks like we're up against lands. Or it could be green-white deaths, but this card, Diamond Valley, which, I mean, you don't see in lands much either. I think it used to get played more like way back in the day, but it's kind of a wild spot there. Alright, I got something for our Thin Ice to hit. I opt to make my land drop there, even though this can be wastelanded, but I think it's just important to get lands in play here. So our position looks pretty good here. Unfortunately, he does have a Caracas. Sythis. Unfortunately, we don't have that much green mana, so we have to pass here. And he crop rotates for a Ghost Quarter and gets back his Reclaimer. Alright, it's Urza's Saga. So unfortunately, this Caracas is doing a good job of holding back my development because of Sythis, and I haven't hit any acceleration yet, which can be pretty critical against them. And my basic plains is also gone, so I have to Utopia Sprawl here, and I'm kind of shut out on white mana, and then our draws are also very awkward at this point. We're not drawing any gas, so we need Abundant Growths, or, you know, 1 mana enchantments to get us going here, but we're not getting that. Yeah, unfortunately, this will be, like, we could have chump blocked there, but then our board position's really bad, and we're still in the position of having to chump block again next turn. Yeah, so I end up digging here, but I guess if I hadn't cracked that fetch, actually I could have done it. Like I said, I was double queuing, so that was probably just a mistake. I would have gotten to 21. I could on thin ice this. And then I wouldn't even have to chump block. I'd go down to 1 next turn. You know, he could have Punishing Fire or something, but we haven't seen it yet. So, yeah, I guess just, you know, I was thinking about Wasteland, but then I got a Savannah, so I think that was simply a mistake. So I haven't seen as much of lands recently, so I'm still figuring out how to sideboard against it with the new list. This is how I did it this game. I brought in an extra land just to try to make sure we hit our land drops. Kazali Pride Mage hits a lot of really relevant things. We saw Urza Saga, Exploration, Valakut Exploration, Post-Sphere can hit. Sphere of Resistance, actually I think this person was main decking it because their list was posted on the MTGO website. But yeah, I can hit a bunch of stuff. The Paladin classes aren't especially good. They're not terrible because they do interfere with Force of Vigor as well as end step crop rotations. So they do reduce their ability to surprise you, which is pretty relevant, especially on top of a Sphere of Resistance. That's a 2-mana tax that they'd have to pay. And then the Destiny Spinner is just not super relevant, but again, you always want one so that you can Zenith for it in situations where you just need to create a lot of damage this turn with a Zenith. Okay, can't keep a no-lander, another no-lander. So we milled a 5, not a great start. And this isn't a great 5 either. It does have, you know, we're relying on them being really dependent on stuff we can destroy with these 2 cards, which, you know, sort of is what happens. We get to kill a Mox Diamond. Unfortunately, I already have, you know, half the combo out. Kill the other Mox Diamond. I'll just play that preemptively just to get the pump because of possible Punishing Fire. Unfortunately, they just draw Ancient Tomb here, which means that they've got the kill. And we just draw more lands. So, you know, that one was just a bad hand. It's possible I should have mulliganed to 4. It's hard to imagine a 4-card hand on the play winning in a matchup where you do need a lot of resources, like you need to have your land drops against lands. Alright, let's go to the next round. Okay, I played against this person a couple weeks ago in the challenge, and I believe that they were on Yorion Alurin. We can see they've got an 80-card deck, so they're definitely on Yorion. So I'll assume right now that they're on Alurin. Let's see our opening hand. We win the die roll again. Pretty fortunate. So this hand is okay. It has Paladin class, which is relevant against Alurin. They are a fair deck that plays Force of Will, as well as like Abrupt Decay and stuff. And I like being able to shut down or limit their ability to interact on our turn, especially since we are on the play. And then it has Cast Out, which can answer Alurin or can answer another problem permanent, and has the potential to cycle. It's not a stellar hand, it's obviously quite land heavy, but I will still take it. I have to dig. Okay, we'll go for the Sythis. And it turns out we're against Death and Taxes instead of Alurin. We do draw the Sythis. We're able to cycle off of her. They bounce. That's fine. Okay, Spirit of the Labyrinth. We do have Cast Out. Or we have on Thin Ice as well, but they have Mom. So what we can do here is wait for this. So they go Thalia. We have to Cast Out in response to try to hit the Spirit. Obviously, they'll Mom it. Actually, I go for the Mom. It doesn't matter what I do. They're going to Mom in response. So what we can do here is on Thin Ice in response, which is obviously not ideal, but we need to do what we can while we can. And I opted just to play the Argothian to set up for next turn. If they have a Flicker Wisp or a Skyclave, we're in trouble. They do. Okay, luckily we find a Living Wish. I have for Doomwake Giant. Destiny Spinner to block. So that'll hold back the Thalia. Spirit, okay, never mind. They've got removal. Okay. Well, if we draw a land, though, we can just Doomwake and clear everything except the Skyclave, even under a port. Okay, we draw a land. Good. Alright, we're in business. Doomwake Giant gonna clean up. They get to save their Thalia, but now they're quite low on resources. They can kill Doomwake here, it doesn't matter anymore. Well, I mean, obviously, it would always be better to have the Doomwake Giant. But that does gain us a bunch of life. And now their spirit is gone, and we are free to go. I'm going to draw as many cards as I can while I can, because they could have another spirit. Okay, we gain some life, which is relevant because we are pretty low life and under pressure. I'm forced to chump block here. We do have Elephant Grass, which stops the Germ token from attacking. And we do have a bunch of Enchantresses, so at this point the game is over. We can also just gain tons of life. Actually, can we even win this turn, possibly? I'm not sure. I don't think we've made our land drop yet. No, I guess we can't win this turn. Discarding a bunch of stuff. When you're at this point, when you've drawn a bunch of cards, obviously what you're going to want to keep are the things that are actually business spells. Everything else is pretty irrelevant. Okay, against Death and Taxes, I like to take out the Living Wish part of the deck and just go everything main deck, because they are a deck that attacks you on the mana axis. I took out all 4 Paladin class. It's actually, the level 2 ability is relevant against them. So it's not completely dead, and it's obviously a cheap thing, but you also kind of do want to drop the number of 1 mana spells you have, because they have Sanctum Prelate. And you might notice in the sideboard, we have a lot of relevant cards that we're not even bringing in. We could bring in Endurance, just as a 3/4 flasher. We could bring in Collector Oof to shut down Vile and Cheat. We could bring in Grist. We could bring in just this as another land. So it's actually a little bit tricky to sideboard here. I end up sideboarding like this, bring in some lands, the extra Enchantress, Doomwake Giant, these are all slam dunks, so is Ghazali Pride Mage and Solitude. And I'll also bring in Destiny Spinner, just as a 2/3, that's also an enchantment, and a kill condition, as well as Wismare, because it kills Spirit of the Labyrinth. It also can kill Deafening Silence, which they'll usually bring in. Deafening Silence isn't that scary. We have a lot of creatures, actually, but it still has multiple targets, and it hits their most important card, of course, which is Spirit of the Labyrinth. Okay, we are going into Game 2 of the final round. We are on the draw against Death and Taxes. How is our hand? So this is a pretty good hand, actually. It's got an Enchantress, it's got Caracas, which can be very good against them. It can also protect our Sythis. It's got On Thin Ice for a turn 1 Mom. It's got Cast Out, and it's got several land drops, so this is pretty solid. Okay, they do not go turn 1 Mom, they go turn 1 Aether Vial. We don't have an answer at the moment, so let's draw a card. Alright, that's obviously really good to have in hand, just in long term. It's not like they can strip it out of our hand. Alright, let's get our Sythis in play. They can kill her. We've got another one. Okay, well, there's the Spirit of the Labyrinth. Luckily for us, we have an answer. We could have Caracas there, but they've got a Wasteland. I don't want to lose the Caracas to the Wasteland just yet. Okay, Deafening Silence. As you can see, our hand is mostly creatures, so that's actually not that scary. Do they have another spirit? No. They do. Oh, they do. They have War Priest to destroy that and then play the spirit. Okay, that's fine. We do have Cast Out and Doomwake Giant as other forms of removal. I will hold off. So I'm baiting the Wasteland with the Caracas, so they can play the Sanctum, and then they replay the Thalia, and we get to Doomwake away their board, except for the War Priest itself. and they're just going to concede to that. Doom Giant, obviously, really, really good against Death and Taxes. That's our best card against them. For a long time, I ran 2. One main deck, one in the side. I don't think the metagame's at that point right now. It takes a little bit more work to get Doomwake relevant against Delver these days, especially that dragon can be just, absurdly large and difficult to kill with Doomwake. And obviously it's pretty high on the curve. Okay, so we ended up 4-3, really 3-3 with a bye. We did beat one of our worst matchups, Elves. And we lost to a matchup that's generally favorable, Lands. I do think my play mistake round 1 could have made a big difference. But yeah, so a decent performance. Hope you enjoyed watching it and got to see some of the new cards in action. In particular, I think Sythis' life gain has been way more relevant than I thought it would be when it was spoiled. And while I do like being able to Living Wish for Endurance, Living Wish for Solitude has made a big difference in terms of what the deck is capable of doing. So I think Solitude has been really solid for us. Okay, thanks for watching. Signing off.